Hi, everyone, and welcome to On the Couch with Emma. So, this is an interview series where we interview entrepreneurs about their journey and not so much about their business, more about, their ups and downs, where they came from, how they get over everything. Because I really would have loved this when I started my own business. And I really want to help people, to give them information and to, tell them, me too, I'm there. I had that problem and here's how I overcame it. And today we have an amazing business person, athlete, everything person in general, I would say, Jason Black. And Jason has done everything from mountains to cycling to business, and there's hurdles in every single one of them. And I suppose a lot of you guys probably know him from a lot of that because it was well documented, but probably you don't know the real Jason or what's behind all of that. And, the struggles he has as well, like all of us. So that's really what I would love to start with today. Thank you, Jason, so much for coming on and speaking to us. How's
Delighted
everything?
to be here. Thank you so much for the kind invitation to share. And I suppose it's unique because I'm generally getting an opportunity to come on and talk about my sporting life and all that jazz. So you're picking at a scab that possibly hasn't been picked at in a long
Okay.
time.
Okay, so we'll delve right into that, Scab. Tell me something about how you got, maybe I know you always talk about St. Eunan's being the baptism of fire. So maybe we'll just start there. Tell me about you as a young person.
Yeah, so I suppose people that follow me and know me for what I do. Sometimes the athletes and individuals, they're kind of set up there. But the reality is, it just doesn't happen. This thing doesn't happen easy, and like all of us have knocks in life. I suppose that's the first place I'd like to start, and having the courage to look back at your knocks in life has definitely helped me be the person that I am today. And my knocks in life were very early on. And for me, I'd had a pretty bad time with a bully at St. Eunan's College. And, I don't blame the bully. I don't blame the school. It's just that it was just an event that happened to me back then. It was a very unpleasant event. I lost a complete education during that time. I spent 5 years at the school, and I was really excited about getting to the school because I'd come from a little country school in the outskirts of the Letterkenny, and I was ready for the next challenge and the next adventure. And sadly for me, the wheels came off, and I fell victim to a violent bully, and I lost an education. And just walking out of that school at 17 years of age, I was pretty, I suppose back then, I was in the late 80s, early 90s, we were living in a very different Ireland. We didn't have the support mechanisms, and certainly we didn't live in the modern society that we live in today, where men and women have the courage to speak up and speak out. And there's safety nets there to catch us, and there's people there to support us. And I felt that just didn't exist then. And certainly as a boy, as a young man, it wasn't a done thing to say that you were struggling, because there was no question, Emma, that I was absolutely categorically struggling with a youthful mental depression that I didn't even know what it looked like. I didn't even know that it existed. I didn't have the toolkit to address it. I didn't have the courage to speak about it to my parents, to my peers, to my community. And it was a very trapped time in my life, I felt a very disabled human being.
But I
And
suppose just to touch on that, so even though now, it is more open and you do talk more, I'm sure there's people that still feel exactly how you felt right now. Like, right now they're still feeling that way, that they don't feel like they can talk to their parents or their friends, or maybe they don't feel like there's support out there from them because they don't know how to reach out for it or whatever, and even not knowing how to do it, but then the physically doing it, saying, I need help, I'm not doing well here.
yeah, and that's a really good point, because there's two sides to the fence, and sitting on this side of the fence now, having the courage and the charisma and the wisdom to say, if you're struggling, being bullied in life, in work, in a marriage, in a relationship, in school, have the courage to speak up and speak out. But then I go back and I put myself back in the other shoes, and you're disabled as a person, and the individual that bullies you, either at work, in a workplace, because some people are exposed because they've got heavy mortgages, or they've come out of a recession and they just need to be able to pay for the fuel in the car, or 4 kids, and to keep them fed, and they're prepared to put up with anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to say, why didn't you say something? It's very hard for the person that's sitting there going, well, if I do, the consequences are too high. I suppose for me, as a human being, what I always ask people to do is just be mindful that person mightn't be in a position to do it today, or have the courage to do it, and maybe you need to do it for them. If you know that it's going on, rather than just saying nothing, have the courage to speak up, speak out, and be that voice for that person. Because I think what people don't recognize or realize, that have never had this happen to them, is that the scars and the effects of a consistent bully in life is devastating, and it can be very dismantling to an individual, if you don't get the toolkit, to be able to overcome it. So yeah, look, but bullying takes so many forms. I mean, I thought I had dealt with the bully and left the bully behind when I'd left St. Eunan's College, and I don't blame the college, first and foremost. I mean, I've been back in the school, and it's a wonderful school. I've been back in the school, and I've been presenting the Jason Black story in the school, back in the same classroom that this happened to me. And the teachers are so liberating. They're engaged. They're at the same level with the students, and they're so meaningful in their approach to school, very different to when I was there. But when I left school, the bully didn't stop, because the next bully for me became society. And Emma, that was nearly as equally as punishing, because what people don't recognize is that society has a box, and if you don't fit into the box, then you're an outsider, or you're just a square peg in the round hole. And the box, sadly, today is made up of a degree in education, a car, a house, and a lifestyle. And if you don't measure up to that, you're a waster. And I really struggled with that, because in one very meaningful way, and my very vivid memories, I couldn't get an interview, I couldn't get a job, because I didn't have the credentials. I couldn't every time I joined the queue, I put my CV in, because I didn't have the A's, the B's, the C's, and the D's, and the leaving cert and the junior cert. Every single time that I got to the front of the queue and it was my turn, the bully measured me, which was society, on the fact that I didn't have that. And I just felt, I just constantly was put to the back of the queue, and it got so suppressing that I found myself on my knees, completely crippled.
And so was it like a repeated cycle for you? So it was the exact same kind of feelings over and over again, kind of showing their ugly head, let's call it. So you were literally like, yeah, I'm gone from this, but now I'm going through this. Now it's like again and again and again. So like, how did you break out of that cycle? How did you overcome that?
Look, I suppose, perseverance overcame it, a bit of luck overcame it, and an opportunity overcame it. I suppose before I go into that, it still exists today. Society, if we look at society today, it's a very judgmental environment. We see social media platforms that present this look, shape, and behavior. And unless you measure up to that, the young people that I work with on a regular basis, they're using that as their yardstick today. In the business world, the same box exists. You've got to have the certain language. You've got to operate a certain way. You've got to present yourself in a certain manner. And what that does, that takes away your natural rhythm. It takes away who you naturally are, and you end up becoming a very adapted human being. And I see that a lot when I work with business leaders and huge companies, and indeed small local companies, that they're living an adapted life. They're not living their true natural identity, and their constant battle every day is that they're having to fit in, as opposed to carving out who they actually are. And for me, you asked me the question, how did I deal with it? I think a bit of luck for me, Emma. I found myself in Dunnes Stores, which I was very privileged and humbled to get the opportunity, having been pushed back in so many queues. And I found myself on my knees packing the shelves. And from there, I kind of, my mom and dad had this very deep rooted kind of concept at home that if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And that stayed with me as a person. And I decided that I was going to be the best shelf packer in Dunnes Stores. And I got a bit of luck, because one day, because of very bad snow, the sales rep for Cadbury's, who happened to be the product that I was merchandising and packing for, couldn't make it to Letterkenny, and a phone call came through to the desk, and his name was Pádraig Murray, and he asked me, Jason, can you do the order? And I didn't know how to do the order, and I went out the back, and I was staring into the abyss, and a guy from Glencarr called Dan McTague was the rep from Jacob's Biscuits, and I asked Dan, look, I'm a fish out of water. How do I do an order? And he taught me within an hour how to do the stock control, count the stock in the shop, and make an assessment as what was required. I done a good job, I believed, and so much so that Cadbury's sent a message down asking me would I be in a position to go to Dublin for an interview. And I was in a bad old place at the time, Emma, because I suppose my self-worth was pretty broken, and my confidence was pretty shook as a person, and I didn't feel that I would match up. And here was me going to, globally one of the biggest confectionery companies in the world, and I was going on the CIE bus to Dublin to do an interview, and I decided I'd go and give it an opportunity, and I got the job, Emma, and I never looked back, and that was me off my knees. And
But you know what? Like, I think I would say sometimes, oh, I was lucky I got that. I was lucky I got that. But then when I really think about it, well, I was on my knees and I did do the work, and then I did get on the bus and go there. None of that was luck. I got the phone call, but I made it into something. So exactly, you literally tried again, even though you're pushed back from job interview, you kept trying. You didn't, and while that didn't exactly build your confidence, you still didn't let your confidence hold you back. So it's not, sometimes confidence people think is this thing everyone has. It's actually something that you don't have, and you grow it even as you get knocked back. You say, no, okay, I'm going to keep going. It's a muscle you build.
And I really grasped that concept thereafter. Because it's also about enabling, and we all are enablers. We are all contributors to success in life, and that enabler for me was Pádraig Murray. He decided that I was good enough to go to Dublin, and he was going to make it his business. And I look back in my journey today, and my greatest success is to be enabling others, maybe less fortunate, somebody like me that was on their knees, putting that self-belief, commitment, and just showing them that it's possible. And then I suppose from there, I just, it's not that I didn't look back, but I found a new heartbeat in Jason Black. I found that, okay, yeah, if you can make this step, maybe with more baby steps, that we can keep this going forward. And what I found was that I found my natural pattern in life, Emma. What the university that I lost through the education of school, I picked up very quickly through the education of the road and sales, because all of a sudden I found myself in a car, and there's a little story about the car which I'll share with people, and it's about sometimes opportunity comes knocking and you must take it, even though it may have little bits of consequences. And in my case, when I got the job offer from Cadbury's Chocolate, they said, Jason, have you a full license? And I didn't have a full license, but I felt at that time this was my only opportunity to get off my knees, and I had to tell that little white lie. Was it something I'm proud of? No, not necessarily, the lie itself, because that's just the way I was reared as a human being. But I just needed to do something in order to get my foot on that ladder. And back then there was no scanning or social media. We had to fax the driver's license to Dublin, and what I was going out with Sharon, who's my beautiful wife today, and we photocopied the green side of the license, which was the provisional, and photocopied the pink side of the license, which was Sharon's full license, and faxed it to Dublin. It arrived in Dublin in a black and white format, and I received a Ford Escort car, and that was it. I applied for my license and I got it a few months later, and I never looked back. And it was from then, I suppose, the university of life for me was when I got engaged with people in the shops. And I think it's a skill set that business people and that human beings overlook sometimes. And it was probably my door opener, which was the greatest skill set that I had wasn't my English, Irish, maths, geography, or history. My skill set was the courtesy and manners and respect that my mum and dad had taught me as a young boy. And that education at the dinner table where, the please and thank you was critically important. The gratitude of receiving food and the clothes on my back gone through. And for me, Emma, that was my toolkit. That was the bag that I carried into Cadbury's, and then that went on to Cuisine de France. And
I think there's intelligence and there's emotional intelligence, and I actually value emotional intelligence much over intelligence, IQ. If you know how to talk to someone, you know how to treat someone, you just get farther in life, definitely.
I've never had a door close on me, Emma, because I've had the courage and the charisma just to say please and thank you, and
Yeah.
just to be humble in the presence of somebody else's business, and to be thankful for the gifts that I've been given. And I suppose it became very real for me and tangible because I realized what it was like to be in the gutter, and I was rock bottom, Emma. So, everything was a gift after that. Every step along the way in a positive manner was a bonus for me. So, and sometimes, I think it's important, and that's probably one of my biggest messages. It's okay to hit rock bottom, because that's where you really find out who you are. That's when you really have to look deep inside yourself, and instead of looking and or outwardly for the answers to business or to life or to a marriage or to success, it's having the courage to look inside, because generally and honestly, the answers are there, but we're
Yeah.
always looking for this quick fix, or we're always looking for this, look, this like off the shelf answer, or
Mhm.
off the shelf solution. And it's intuitive, it's inside us.
Yeah.
And
This is something I'm actually going to talk about in one of my own Friday videos. I was always looking for someone else to help me with this or help me with that or whatever, and they can contribute, but it's something in you that moves you forward, that gets you where you're meant to be.
yeah, it's that driving force, and we
Yeah.
have it inside us. And look, the thing is, Emma, that we're all different, and that's what's beautiful about the world. I've used the line, and I've heard the line, that the world would be a damn boring place if we were all made the same, and it really would be. So
Definitely.
it's critical for us to accept that we are all different, and we all don't fit into this box, and it's okay, because I was the square peg in the round hole, and that was okay. And my greatest success is that I've been able to survive in a world that was constantly trying to make me something else.
Well, yeah, and I think, Jason, because you're doing that, you're enabling other people's, and in ways you probably don't even know. Like, take just us for a second. So I worked in Voodoo, and you were my boss or colleague or whatever you want to call it. But I remember one night you coming over and cleaning the counter, and it wasn't clean, and that was my job. And I was like, right, I need to always make sure that's clean, because I can't have him coming over cleaning it. And, I actually moved up to supervisor because I worked hard, because of the ethics of the people around me in there. And you grew all of that just by doing what you're doing. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and I'm very mindful of that, because you see, I've sat on both sides of the fence. So I don't know. Look, I suppose I know leadership, is a word that's been bantered about a lot at the minute, certainly over the last couple of years. But what people need to realize, that leadership can be catastrophic and it can be enabling. And
Hmm.
a true leader is somebody that enables and inspires and encourages, and a very important word is empowers people, and gives them the autonomy and the platform and the stage to springboard to something better. And leaders and business owners and managers need to realize that they shouldn't set the limit for that individual. They should just set the environment for them to springboard off to
Yeah.
something even greater.
Yeah.
And to trap a person or to hold them back on their journey for your own personal gain is not the key to success.
Hmm.
To watch. I mean, I have a great story that, Hugh Brogan worked for me, and Hugh came in as a glass collector to Voodoo at the very start. And when I left Voodoo, and we sold it, Hugh was the outgoing manager of the business, and knew it like the heartbeat. And I reflected on my own journey. The greatest learning that you learn in retail is when you're on your knees packing the shelves.
Yeah.
It's not learning it from the book. While the book is important, there's nothing more powerful than a life learned experience. Um,
Definitely. Definitely. I always say, even like, I did the college thing and I learned loads and it was amazing. It was good crack and all that. But I have learned more in the last 8 years running my business than I have learned in any other thing, because it's like a life personal development course that you're getting paid to do, basically. Because when you're running your own business, it's really like you have to deal with people, you have to deal with everything. You literally, and you have to balance everything, and you have to be calm and be on top of it. And it's bigger than anyone even thinks. And like we were saying earlier, it's up, down, sideways. It's not going to be an overnight success, and it rarely is. And even if it is, it's not been overnight. Do you know, that kind of way?
No, it's not. And I spoke earlier about, looking inwards, but there is an opportunity. There's also a time to look outwards, and not to look outwards in a blame game, like blame the world, blame the environment, blame
Yeah.
COVID, blame the market, blame everything, instead of taking responsibility for what you can control and control your controllables. But I think there's a really important time to look outwards to strengthen teams. And one of my strengths, I suppose, in reflection was to empower people to become leaders in their own right within a certain department within our business. And I think when I reflect on the success of those 15 years for myself and Sharon in business, it wasn't the wisdom of Jason Black and Sharon Black. It was certainly just having the courage to invest in individuals and give them the autonomy and the freedom to express themselves and to live and to operate naturally in their strengths, and not to have to fit into Jason Black's box or what he required from Voodoo. Yes, we had a strategy, a business strategy, but it was so organic in its nature that we allowed people to add value to it and to bring it and pull it and shape it in directions that possibly we would never have thought of. And in reflection, we got best live venue in Ulster for 5 years. We best nightclub and the mountaintop shop done so well, and the wee corner shop at the bottom of town. And it was nothing to do with us. It was everything to do with the people that we had working alongside us. And I hate the word boss, because nobody should be a boss of anybody. We should be enablers. We should be supporters. We should be there to catch and to promote. And that's critical as a skill set. And it's something I really, really, really empower people within the business world, certainly business leaders and business owners, to really embrace and to see it differently, and just not to see it through your own eyes.
Yeah. And so, you start in these businesses and be it having that mindset of enabling and having that mindset of people, and, going from on your knees to being the leader, let's say, rather than the boss. Do you think a little bit of what happened to you when you were younger propelled you forward to that, made you more determined, or do you think you could have been even further if that didn't happen to you?
Yeah, look, I suppose two things were working alongside it. One was, I did get to a stage in my life where I thought the world definitely was a better place without Jason Black in it. That's how dark I was, at that time. I just, going into a little bit more hardship. I lost my mommy at 18. I was just changing between 17 and 18. Mum died of cancer, breast cancer. And everybody knows the strength of a power and the strength and power of a mother in any family. They are the glue, they are the magic, they are the soundbite. They're just this really incredible human being. And to lose your mother, and I was already spinning through life, catastrophically, and that sent me spinning. And then I lost my brother Billy, who was my arch enemy and best friend.
Mm-hmm.
We'd done everything together. We were on adventure and we played sport together. And I think that time, of loss and desolate, I found myself in a bad old place. It definitely made me have a look at myself. And not back then, Emma. I suppose my during that whole journey in life, I use sport as my out, and it's something I talk to business people and people in general about. That sometimes we get so fixated with the constant stress and strain of having to be at work on a constant basis, or lead an organization or business, that they find no time for themselves. And I don't talk about going for a walk and putting your headphones on and listening to the latest music or podcasts. What about listening to yourself? Mm-hmm. What about just checking in with you? And what I realized was that whenever I went on my huge expeditions, the expeditions that took me to a quiet environment for longer than a couple of months, like Everest or K2 or Amitabh or Nepal, Pakistan, wherever I was in the world, what I found, Emma, is that the silence was deafening in that environment, but I wasn't. And as all the challenges and the baggage that I had incurred, I had brought with me, and I still had brought with me. And I thought I had dealt with the bully and my mother's death. I thought I had dealt with the pressure of society, but I hadn't. And I was just chugging along. And it's a bit like having dirty diesel in a car. You get from A to Z, but you get there very inefficiently, and you're not really operating at your full potential. And that's what I was like. So I suppose for me, the mountains give me the greatest opportunity to release myself from that weight and that burden. I cried, I empathized, I was angry, and I made peace. And it's something I think is quite critical, that people that have had challenges and battles in life or deal with stress. Business leaders today, they're having to engage and try to promote a business and see a way through COVID. I think if they take time out and just check in, they'll find that they get deeper solutions, and
Definitely.
greater.
There's so much noise everywhere, all the time that we don't even give ourselves time to go, but how do I feel? Or what am I really thinking? Okay, I'll just distract myself with this phone. I'll distract myself with Facebook or Instagram or doing that.
We're running from email to email, Emma. We're running from social media to social media. We're doing, and look, all those things are fine. I'm not saying they shouldn't be done. They
And
should be
same,
done.
and I'm the one promoting them. I'm not saying, but I rarely take, like, I'll go for runs, I'll go for walks, but not without my earphones. Why is that? Why am I not going for the quiet time?
Yeah, and you should, and it's so liberating when you do, and it's a courageous thing to do. And sometimes, speaking about Irish people, sometimes as Irish people, we don't have that DNA in us. We don't want to look in the mirror of life, or look in the mirror of our own journey in life, and to reflect on the good, the bad, and the ugly, and take strength from them all, because all of them, and to answer your question bluntly, all of my past didn't shape me who I am today. It would be very unfair to say that it shaped me for who I am, but it liberated me. It gave me the courage to recognize that the gifts of the good and the bad and the ugly had so much more to offer me than just this big black hole that I was stepping into. And look, I've said it to you before. I don't have the answers. The fact is, I don't actually believe none of us do.
Yeah.
The answer that we have is have the courage to share your story. And I always believe that, and there'll be people listening to this, and they'll think that Jason Black's a great story. You have a great story. Everybody's got a story. They're all different stories, but they've all got wonderful stories within them, and we should share them, because it's only through sharing that we create true potential and success.
Yeah, definitely. I always, in my talks, I always say, like, who was the 21st president of the United States of America? No one can tell me. And I say, what did Cinderella lose at the bottom of the stairs? And they say a slipper. And I said, we remember stories. We don't remember facts, and we resonate with them. So someone who's being bullied will resonate with your story. Someone who's currently on their knees packing shelves will resonate with your story. Do you know what I mean? So it's so important that we tell it. And that's why I love this as well. And, even the fact, I think that's really poignant, and something I think the world is trying to tell me as well. So, because you're saying it to me right now, is take that time. I remember I was speaking to a counselor once, and he was like, you need to sit for an hour and do nothing. And I was like, an hour, a full hour,
Yeah.
and he was laughing at me, but it actually, what was wrong with me? What was wrong with sitting for an hour and just being in my own thoughts? And
yeah, and it's a skill that needs developed. It's not something that comes naturally to people. It's like every skill in life. You've got to practice it, rehearse it, and perform it. And yeah, and for me, like, you imagine sitting on the side of a mountain for 2 months. Like, I had nobody to speak to. The only person I had to speak to was Jason Black, and I had all these demons absolutely haunting me. But it was such a liberating time. So yeah, look, it's important to check in, and because if you're okay, you can help everybody else along the way. Is what I'm trying to say. It's important that you're in a good place, because if you're not in a good place, you're no good to yourself or nobody else.
Definitely. Do you know what's funny? I don't think I've ever told you, but in you did that talk about you being up the Everest or whatever, and I was in the Angrena and listening to it, and I fainted, and they had to take me out of Angrena and carry me out from the middle of it. And you know how small those seats are, because it was so I don't know, just whatever you were talking about how you felt like everything was coming in on you at that time, and you were in the tent, and I think you were hallucinating and stuff, and I literally was just like,
yeah, it was like Everest. It's one of those things that, and one of those environments that you need to be there to understand and appreciate it. And it's not, and even through my talks, it's really hard to convey what it's.
I obviously felt like I was there, because I was literally feeling your exact.
And just to be there was just special. It was such a humbling experience, and not a chest beating experience. I don't think I'm any better than anybody else. It didn't change me as a person. It just galvanized and strengthened my beliefs in life, and it was and that's why I say to people, find your Everest. Go after your dreams, and really go after them. Because I've said this publicly. We only get one go at this thing, and it's not the dress rehearsal. It's if we're going to live life, let's live it. And let's live it today. Let's not work for tomorrow, or work for, there's so many people and examples, Emma, that, that are working towards something. And when I get there, I'm going to start living. well, why not live now?
Yeah.
That's my mantra. That's, it's a bit like when I get to retirement, I'm going to have this ball of cash, and I'm going to have this. I've created this space or this environment for me to flourish and enjoy. Why are you waiting for then? Why are you waiting at that time? Because we see people that get there, unfortunately, get sick, or maybe they haven't the wherewithal physically to enjoy what they previously wanted to enjoy at an earlier
Yeah.
life. So
But as
joy.
well, like, why bother wasting your time now to wait for something, you know? And I always think, like, I was actually going for a run the last day, it was actually running through my head. You know, I was like, well, if I won the lotto, what would I do? And then I was like, you know, why don't I just do those things anyway?
Yeah,
There's nothing actually stopping me from doing it. May do it on a smaller scale, I might do it in a different way. But what am I wait? Why am I waiting to win? You know, it was just a little thought, but it's exactly what you're saying. Like, you know,
yeah, but
what
less is more. Less is more, Emma. Less is more. It's not the lotto. It's not the million in the bank account. I
Mhm.
chased that. I chased that myself. And I've never spoke about this. I kept chasing those summits, and I kept thinking when I would get to that summit that it's going to be a color, and it's going to be a shape, and it's going to be a size, and it's going to have this smell about it, and it's going to be successful, and it's going to be this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And when I got there, Emma, it wasn't. It was fine for the first 10, 15 minutes. It was great. But then the realization set in, and I set my next one, and I kind of felt like I was going through life chasing success and chasing, and I kept thinking when I get there, it's going to look a certain way. And what I realized was that the pot of gold was every day, every moment, every conversation. And
You're in the
when that,
journey.
and it's, I hear the word, the journey being used a lot, but it's this conversation. It's not about the cup of tea later on or what's happening in the next hour.
Yeah.
It's not about where am I going to be in 5 years. I'm going to be here and now and present in the moment and all of everything. I'm going to be completely and totally invested in this conversation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's living.
And that's living is right. And I definitely think we, with our phones as well and with everything, we're really not present. Like we're really, and I think that's where the meditation or your time or just your thought for yourself for half an hour, 15 minutes. Like I was starting with 10 minutes and I know I fell out of it, but this is definitely my sign to get back into it.
But I
Definitely.
think COVID's been good. I know
Yeah.
it's been tough and terrible from a health perspective, medically, and for the nurses, doctors, and people in the front line, and for certainly people vulnerable. However, there's another side to it. There's a side of, grounding, and the dinner table has become very important again in the home. The conversation around dinner, the wives have got to know their husbands again. Husbands have got to know their wives again. They've engaged with their children again. The phones have been put down a little bit more in my home. I've noticed
Yeah.
that it's just not the be all and end all. And we have good positive conversation. So from Jason Black and Sharon Black's home, it's been a really positive experience. We all got COVID ourselves. We all
Right.
experienced the effects of COVID. But I economically it's tough and on businesses, and I get all that. But when we see another side to it, I think the world has taught us a bit of a lesson. And I'm a very eco-driven person through my adventure and through my life with nature. I think if we have the courage again to listen, I think there's a wonderful lesson in this, to slow down and to discover yourself and ask those deep questions. Am I okay? Am I on the right road? Am I living an adapted life, or am I living a natural life? Am I the true version of myself, or am I rowing upstream and it's just painfully hard? Am I just rowing and rowing and rowing and I feel I'm going nowhere? And these are the deep rooted questions that COVID has presented us. And for anybody that has the courage and wisdom to look at it and take guidance from it, be the better human being after it.
Completely, completely. And it's such a double-edged sword because it is a terrible
Oh, yeah.
disease and people have gone through terrible things. But what can we take? You know, every day something not great happens. What can we take out of it? What can we kind of move forward with?
Take two
Definitely.
things. We can take opportunity and we can take potential. That's what we can take from it. Nothing else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you know the mountains and that kind of stuff, just to touch on it again for a second, like you say, well, it didn't really change it and that you don't think like you're better or anything like that. But I know, and this is completely minuscule compared to what you did, but I did a triathlon and I remember it was 4 hours and 37 minutes and I kept going, right? And I remember then when I was in just a training class and they were like, do something for 6 minutes. And I was like, well, if I can go for 4 hours, I can do 6 minutes. and I kind of always filter back that. I'm like, when I'm doing something on the computer, I'm like, well, I can do this. I did 4 hours straight there. Do you ever, do you think it propels you on for different things? Like how did the cycling, the climbing affect the other things in your life? If you're looking at business owners and they're constant in business and they need to be doing something else to kind of expand that side, how did it help you?
Yeah, well, I suppose, how did it help me as a human being, and how did it help me as a kind of in a business and a business entrepreneur? From a human being's point of view, I suppose that's where I got the biggest learning, and I took that biggest learning to my business, um, which was when I was climbing and when I generally spend time on adventure or in sport. I'm not in a commercial environment. I'm generally off the beaten path, and you don't get to see the flushness or the richness of certain things that are shown on TV. So if I'm in Fiji racing last year, if I'm in Nepal, or if I'm in Pakistan, or if I'm in Tibet, you get to see poverty at the highest level. And when you're there, you get to experience people that have nothing, Emma, and are prepared to give you absolutely everything from their home, their bed, and they'll sleep on the floor. And when I talk about a home, I'm talking about a mud house. In Africa last year, in the middle of the Congo, I was wiped out about 2 o'clock in the morning, and his family in the middle of the bush reached out to me, and it was pelting rain down. I was just in a bad out place, and I'd been racing 3 or 4 days straight at this time. And I went into their home, and the fire on, and I could smell the sticks burning, and they had like a porridge on the stove, which seemed to be going non-stop. And they didn't have much more in the house. They didn't even have the clothes on their back, and they gave me their bed. And the next day, just the learning from these experiences for me, of when I return back to a modern society like Letterkenny or Ireland, is that we have everything here, and at times when I reflect, we have nothing, because we're constantly looking for more, and we're not happy with what we have. We're constantly, how can you ask for more unless you're thankful for what you have?
Yeah.
So the gratitude of adventure, the gratitude of life has taught me so much. And equally at the same time, I talk about the battles that I had to endure as a human and as a climber or as an athlete. And I get to meet and I get to meet people today that are climbing bigger mountains and tougher adventures than I'll ever have to engage in, because they're engaged with mental health issues, disability, struggles of life, suicide, and why I only had to deal with it for a short time. I mean, they're having to deal with it every day. And they're my inspiration. They're the people that inspire me to keep pushing. If
Yeah.
they're prepared to keep pushing through their pain, what's my limitation, and why am I looking for excuses and blaming the world, instead of just having the gratitude and to realize that I'm healthy, well, and I've got the wherewithal physically, mentally, and emotionally to keep pushing and to live this incredible life. So that's what adventure, instilled in me, and I brought all that back to my business world. And when I applied that, what was that humanness? When I started to apply that human instinct to my business life, and started to treat people, I always felt I treated people with respect, but more so now than ever, and showing gratitude and being thankful, and recognizing their strength. And for me, one of the biggest gifts that I learned was to measure people's gains in life, Emma, and not their gaps.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes as humans, we tend to usually we're always looking for the fault in somebody. We're always looking for the gap that they never completed or finished, instead of saying, congratulations, how far you've come in life has been absolutely immense and empowering, and inspirational. So measure the gains and not the gaps is probably one of my biggest ones. So.
Great. So, is that where Human Performance Ireland kind of came from? Is that, tell us a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. I suppose the greatest understanding that I've probably got over the last 10 years was the power of the mind. I suppose I lived an athletic life, understanding that with an understanding, if I developed this human body, to be stronger and fitter and faster, that would be enough to do what I needed it to do. But what I had done through that process, I had set a limit, and that became my limitation. So as far as I could physically push the body became my limitation. So then I stumbled across and started to research very much the power of the mind. And what I recognized and realized is when I could control my mind, I could control my world. So then what I've developed is that I have developed a skill set, and it's a behavior that, you ask the question, how do you keep pushing, of it recognizing catastrophic mindsets, words, languages, and I create today positive autopilots. Negative autopilots exist, but I create positive autopilots, and I take them from past experiences, I take them from current experiences, I take them from this conversation, and I bank them. The fact is that, it's a bit like running a 10K. When you realize that you've run your first K, then you realize you can run your second, your third, your fourth, and then all of a sudden you run your 10. Then you run your half marathon. And when you run your half marathon, you realize maybe I can run a marathon. And when you realize that you've run a marathon, you can run a marathon forever and ever, amen. And it's about constantly unlocking that full potential, which generally sits up here and not down here.
Yeah.
So where Human Performance Ireland came from was I had a passion about the human psychology and physicality. And I had always been tested as an athlete in Jordanstown University and DCU. And I always understood the science of the body and understanding the metabolic and physiological ability that it had. And what it was when you looked at your limitation, it gave you the opportunity to unlock more potential that existed. But unless you knew where your line was, then and not have the courage to look beyond it. So then when I started doing my talks, Emma, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that I met on an all-time basis was mental health, and people were really struggling with pretty serious mental health issues, and they were all systemic from life, from social media, from having to look a certain way, behave a certain way, or act a certain way, or talk a certain way, and they were never comfortable within themselves. So what I did do then was and I knew that the science existed, but it only existed in the universities, and the universities were sadly only available for elite athletes and for people that had access to the departments through testing or studies that were being carried out. So we wanted to bring, I had the passion that I wanted to bring a metabolic and physiological testing centre to Ireland for the general population, not based around athletics, just general people. And it was mainly about trying to educate people about themselves, and then to bolt on the learning that I had developed through mental skills. I don't have a qualification as a psychologist, but I've lived the university of life, and that's what I pass on through the psychological side of it. But it's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful gift, Emma, to today be in a position where through the testing that I can help people unlock limitations, whether it's through weight loss, whether it's through respiratory, whether it's through cardiac, and these limitations are having a very debilitating effect on people that are maybe struggling with hormonal issues or psychological battles, because they spend their whole waking day thinking about food and weight and how they look and how they don't fit into this dress and how they looked in the past. And it's crippling and disabling people at the minute. So to be able to enlighten people and give them the toolkit that they're not a slave to a system, that they understand their calorie intake, their deficit, how their body's functioning, all the zones that are available to them, and teaching them in a lay type form, all of a sudden they move from the passenger seat to the driver's seat of life.
Definitely. And just on noting on, the degree thing as well, like when I'm working with businesses now in their about section and their all that stuff, when they're talking to people, I say, don't tell them how many years you've been doing this. Don't tell them what degree you have or what date you got it. Tell them you've been through it, you got over it, and you're going to show them how to do it. That's what they care about.
Yeah, look, you go onto LinkedIn today, you go onto any of these platforms, and all you see is a list of degrees and colleges that they attended.
Nothing.
And it's nothing.
The memory test, it's
go in and put in the University of Life, and honestly, you talk to any, like, I mean, when we talk to our elders today, they've so much wisdom. Why? Because they've lived it. They've fallen so many times. They've made so many mistakes. They have the charisma and courage at an older age to talk about it. Whereas when you're young and dynamic and aggressive, and I was that person, you couldn't tell me how to do something, at an earlier stage. I knew everything about everything, and this is the right way to do it. And it was only then, through the mistakes, you realize, oh Jesus, well, that was costly.
Mm-hmm.
And as you rightly
And
said,
that's the joy of making mistakes. You get to show other people,
yeah,
here's what
look, the question of, if you could change things, no, I wouldn't change a thing. It's just that was the adventure of life. There's no right, there's no wrong way, there's no path to success, whatever success is. And that's a really important point. What is success? Is it your bank balance? Is people seeing success as in climbing Everest or K2? Is that success? Is the car sitting in the street your success? Is your clothes on your back? Is that your level of success? Is that how you measure somebody? Or is it about your dignity and respect and empathy and courage and charisma to applaud and celebrate and measure gains and to be positive and constructive in your approach to life? That's success.
Yeah.
That's the true meaning of success.
Yeah. And I suppose success is personal. So what I see as success, if I was able to say hello to someone today and that was really hard for me to do, that would be a success to me. Whereas success to someone else could be something completely different. Or
on that point, it's I'm not, don't take away. I love the car, I love the house, I love the clothes too. It's not that I don't chase those things. I do, but they're not the be all and end all. That's not the DNA of Jason Black. They're just the end products of
things you've done.
Yeah, exactly, of reaping the benefits of pushing on. And I don't dismiss that. I say that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But don't measure me by them.
Yeah.
Measure me by me, a human being.
Yeah. And I think the right people will measure you by the right things as well. Those people you'll come up with.
Yeah, and that's a really, 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 we've stumbled on an area that is so important, because I suppose down through the years when I did do my talks, there was an element of people in society that judged me for doing what I did instead of celebrating what I did. And it was easier to say, is that not a very selfish thing you done, Jason? You've got 4 kids, you've got a wife, you've got a community that loves you, and you still choose to cut the umbilical cord and head off over the Port Bridge with the view maybe never to come back. Instead of saying, look, wow, I don't understand what you've done or why you do it, but I celebrate the fact that it was you followed your passion in life. Mm-hmm. So we should celebrate success at all levels. And it's so important that we do that. We should never, ever, ever put people on pedestals. Nobody is better than anybody else. And you asked me a question coming on to this presentation today, which is, if you were to click your fingers and give me something, what would be that gift? And it would be to level the playing field in life, to get rid of poverty, to eradicate the homeless, which is sickening. To encourage women more so now ever to be absolutely ambassadors and leaders in life, and to really respect the humanness of us all as human beings, color, tone, texture, creed, and culture, whatever we are.
And it would be amazing if we could get to that point. But see, in the meantime, when people are still saying stuff to us, they're still trying to drag you down, even though you're climbing mountains. They're literally saying, well, why are you doing that? What is your, what is your toolkit, or what do you do to try and overcome that? Like, if someone right now is thinking, love to start a business, or I'd love to put myself out there, but Jenny down the road might think I'm up myself, or, what's he going to say? What's your advice to someone like that?
First of all, have the courage to be yourself first and foremost. That's critically important. Have the courage to walk in your own shoes in life is a line that I use a lot. And it's really important to be natural in your moving. From a physical point of view, from a business point of view, research your market, know what you're going into, understand why you're doing it, ask the question, is this something you really want to do, or are you being influenced by something else to do it? For me, I know this mightn't sound right, but I've always wanted to silence the dream stealers in life, the people that told me that I would never be good enough, strong enough, and fit enough. And I use that as a bit of a toolkit for me to push on. But I've also made peace with that as well, Emma. My experiences in the last couple of years has made me do that. And to back yourself as well, be courageous, and I suppose when I look at young people today, and all I see in young people, Emma, is opportunity and potential. Because a young person today doesn't see themselves as a doctor or a dentist or anything else. They don't aspire to be that. All they do is just embrace themselves in the world as it is, fit in absolutely naturally, and all you can see is incredible potential. It's whenever they become infected by society later on in life that they have to try to be something and live up to be something. That's whenever they lose their natural movement in life. To go to a business, just be naturally yourself in life is really important.
Literally the thing I've done all my slides, and it's on my Instagram bio, be yourself because everyone else is taken. There's something unique and wonderful about every single one of us. And it's about,
I
as you
suppose,
say, everything
Tim,
you're saying, take the time to tap into it, take the time to get away from the noise and think about what that is. Exactly everything you're saying is
yeah,
spot
and
on.
I think to answer your question, there's two sides, Emma. I think there's the question you could ask as to what advice do you give. There's a physical thing as to what advice you give. Understand your market, know what you're doing, blah 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 blah. We know all that. Like there's so much information available about that. But what enables you to do this is you. And unless you invest in you, not the market, not the product, not the skill set of endurance, the skill set of looking into your life and pulling on all that strength, that that I'm not giving in attitude, that I'm prepared to run the risk, having that courage to do that. That's equally, if not more important than going and doing a business plan and understanding the A, B, C, E, D of business, because we know how to do that. Like, and there's toolkits out there through yourself and so many other brilliant mediums that'll help people through marketing, product understanding, development, and the marketplace. But that's no good to you if this isn't sorted. And what I say to people is sort yourself first. Make sure that you're in a good place to endure what business is going to throw at you. Because if you're not in a really good place, you're going to be weak and vulnerable. And it doesn't matter how good your business plan is. It doesn't matter how robust it is. If you're not in a good place mentally, physically, and emotionally, you're not going to be able to handle this one here.
Yeah.
So it's a real, and again, that came from just the university of life for me. There's no point in going into business with full gas, unless you're well, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Definitely. And I think if you were to take one thing from what we're talking about today, that is the most important thing, definitely. So I knew we'd be over half an hour. I knew that for sure, certain. But I'm going to ask you, there's three last questions I really want to get. One is about the past, one is about the future, and one is about now. Okay. So the past, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would you say?
If I was to go back and tell myself something, just, I suppose first and foremost, I can't change the past. The past is the past, and I can only embrace the potential of what's around the next corner. And that's my magic. Would I change my past, Emma? No. If I was to go back, I would say with the wisdom that I have today, be yourself, Jason. I tried to fit in and I struggled. I tried to be the square peg in the square hole, and I was living a very unnatural life and a very adapted life, which came with its own pressures, mental pressures. So be yourself, have the courage to be yourself. That's what I would say to Jason Black today. And not to, and I think it's tougher today, Emma, if I'm being very honest, because I think young people today are trying to imitate people on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and there's a lot more pressure there today.
Definitely. And I think even, people doing Zoom calls, you're seeing yourself all the time and you're judging what other people are seeing. See when you're having a conversation with someone, you're looking at their face and you're not thinking about you. So it's a different world again, completely. And I know I see younger people, they're all about taking selfies and doing the phone and just taking pictures back and forth to each other. And that is going to be looking at yourself all the time. And I really would love, I think I'd love someone to go into schools and say what we're saying. Do you know what I mean? And know you do.
And I am doing that, and it's a very liberating place to be.
Yeah.
I know Nikki's doing it, your friend as well, and she's wonderful. And there's so many out there. And look, to stand in a classroom and to be yourself, and to tell a story that's real and it's not coming from a book. It's so it's so gratifying just to have the courage, to have survived life, and to recognize that it's so worth living, Emma. So next round question.
So in the future, let's say 5 years, what's on your bucket list? Where do you see yourself? What would you, what's,
Look,
what's,
that question flies in the face of what I think and believe is I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years' time. Does that
Mhm.
really matter? Where I am at the minute is I'm in a really good place, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I'm very ingrained in my community, and that matters to me. Currently today, I'm working with the Irish Red Cross as an ambassador. I'm getting to see stuff that just will blow your mind, and it's the here and now. Um, if in 5 years' time, I would love to see myself still heavily engaged in a humanitarian environment, trying to make the world a better place, commercially, continuing to help people through Human Performance Ireland. I think my understanding of life is my greatest gift is to make a difference in somebody's life through my past history, and if I can continue that journey. Does it come with financial gains? No, that doesn't really light me up today. It did maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago, but it doesn't light me up today. If I have enough in my pocket to keep the food on the table and the lights on in the house, I'm ahead.
Yeah.
Um, so in 5 years' time, I want to have I want to have a stronger humanitarian compass in my life. I want to continue that journey. I want to really empower people to really push on and to be the best version of themselves. And I know that's a word that's kind of used a lot, but it's something that matters to me.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
and I want to share with people as well, just to be kind to each other. I think being kind is such an important commodity at the minute. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others.
Yeah. And there's something actually you mentioned earlier, I meant to say that, the negative autopilot, it's so easy to go into that. It's so easy to go, well, this isn't going to work. And that, and it's like your normal thing. So I think it's great that you're even doing that, the positive autopilot.
Yeah,
Like,
look,
why don't I just think positively about this? Why can't I just go the other way?
yeah, there's a book I want to share with everybody. It's called The Chimp Paradox. Professor Steve Bruce wrote it. He done some
Great.
work with me. He was responsible for some major successful breakthroughs in sport, and I got the opportunity to work with him and his learning. And when you recognize that the limitations are the chimpanzee in your mind, whether we like it or not, we come from the jungle. There's a very
Mhm.
strong inherent gravitation there, that fight, flight, and freeze is there. And all conversations that we hear, including this one, and everybody will hear what I have to say today, and they'll make judgment. That's your chimp, that's not you. And that's your
Mhm.
chimp, and your chimp is generally catastrophic in its mindset. It's generally the one element of your mind that sets the barrier up and says, oh God, don't do this. This is crazy. What's people going to think? Don't be doing that podcast, Jason. Everybody's going to laugh at you. And that's your catastrophic mindset. Don't take that gamble. If you do, you'll never be able to pay the mortgage off. Don't expand your business because, wow, what happens if that's your chimp? It's not you as a human being. But when you apply and you understand through your positive autopilots, through your learning of positive experiences, even if they're only small, bank them, because what you can do is from the human side of your brain is you can say, look, I've been here before. I've survived it. It's fine. We've been in a pandemic before. We've survived it. We've lost business before. We've found other ways to survive. And when you apply logic, sense, facts, and reasons coming from your positive autopilots, that really helps you push through that catastrophic mindset. So that's a skill set I've developed. I understand, first of all, that the conversation is the chimp interpretation. It's making a judgment. Then I apply logic, sense, facts, and reasons. That's the human side through my past. And then I can just blow past it and I can silence the chimpanzee by giving it a banana.
Amazing, amazing, great. Sounds amazing. So, just I don't want to finish up in a question, but I just want to say as well that the world is a funny place. So, like 10 years ago, I was working in a bar with you, and we were having the crack, and meeting lots of people, and it definitely developed me as a person. But as well, then the skills I learned there meant I could go on and work in Australia. And you happily sent me and Liz off to Australia and said, "Good luck, girls. Best of luck. Live your lives." And you say, like, you're empowered who to stay there, and you also empowered us to leave. So that to me was good leadership. And then because we were we'd done that bar work, we were able to do that in Australia, and that led on to things and different things, you know, and all of that led me to start my own business, and working with you was a big part of that. So thank you for that part of it.
Yeah, you've been such an enabler for people, Emma, because you apply logic and sense. You don't put fluff around it, and you talk about it just naturally. And I think you also have the wisdom and honesty to admit that you don't know it all, and that you share what you know, and you're always learning, and you're always seeking help and advice, and you are prepared to walk in your own shoes. So a lot of what I spoke about today is part of your DNA. You do go on social media and you speak positively and honestly about the good, bad, and the ugly of business life, and you're always caring and sharing and trying to empower others. So I'm just delighted and humbled to have shared a small part in that huge wheel of yours, and that goes back to the point I made, that we all have the ability to make a difference in other people's lives, and that's the way we should measure success.
Definitely, definitely. So just before we leave, do you have any offers or anything going on with Human Performance, or you'd like to anybody maybe just to go to the website and take a look at it?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity for that. Again, I just want to appeal to everybody. It's not a sporting environment. It's just for the general population. Pop on to Human Performance Ireland. Let us show you how we can really empower you as a person and understand what's possibly holding you back physically and emotionally and psychologically, so that you can live a full and fruitful life.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Jason. And this will be on YouTube to watch again and again, and I'm sure people will get loads and loads out of it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Okay.
Emma. God bless.
Bye.